Hello, ladies and gents. Here are some ways to know if you are yourself a narcissist. Number one, have a little look at the 9 traits of narcissistic personality disorder. Take the time to go and look them up. A lot of people talk narcissism. He's a narcissist, she's a narcissist, this guy is a narcissist. And then I say to them, do you know what the 9 traits of narcissistic personality disorder are? And their eyes glaze over. A narcissist doesn't mean a nasty person. It doesn't mean a person who disappointed me or when mother didn't buy me the right shade of Ferrari for my 16th birthday. It's actually a very specifically defined clinical entity in psychiatry, and there are 9 traits of it. There are traits like entitlement, being interpersonally exploitative, being extremely envious of other people, and being highly attached to a fantastical version of yourself. Traits like seeking vengeance if you are wronged. Now, if you go and look at those 9 traits, you'll be able to answer the question. Either they very, very look like me, very yes, or they very, very don't look like me, very no, or somewhere in between. And you might think, well, you just said that this is a very nuanced and highly complicated defined psychiatric clinical entity. How could I possibly just read a series of 9 traits and say, yeah, that's me, or no, it isn't? That surely wouldn't work. Well, that's what researchers in the field used to believe until the creation of the single inventory narcissism score. This was developed through Ohio and Indiana University, 2 researchers working together. And they found that if they just read out to students on campus, here is what a narcissist is. These are the traits of narcissism. Do you largely agree with this or do you largely not? Those that said that they did, when they went back and retested them with a more complicated, longer-winded test for narcissism, they found it was just as good. What does this mean? It means that people with NPD know very well that they are behaving narcissistically when narcissistic behavior is explained to them. They are not confused. So if you are confused, that would also be an indicator that you don't have narcissistic personality disorder. Look at the traits, learn what they are if you want to use the word narcissism, and see if you largely agree or largely disagree. Number 2 would be, are you worried? Are you worried? Are you preoccupied with this? If you're lying awake at night thinking, maybe it's me, maybe I'm the narcissist, the first thing to do would don't be scared of the literature, don't be scared of going and reading, is go and find out what the 9 traits of NPD actually are. Because it's probably in that gap where you kind of feel like you know where the word narcissism is used in context, but you don't really know what NPD is. When you find out what NPD is, and remember that to get a clinical diagnosis, somebody has to tick off 5 of the 9 traits positively. You'll realize it's a very, very specific, very unique mode of being. It's probably, most likely, a post-traumatic stress defense to a child being raised in a very, very brutal environment. And if you don't tick off 5 of these 9 very specific traits, you just don't have it. Like, you don't have NPD. The second thing to consider is if you're worried about it, if you're anxious about it, that's a good indication that you don't have it. Because if somebody had NPD, they wouldn't be wringing their hands and anxious and full of angst over maybe I have this thing or not. Usually people who have the traits, when they've never heard of narcissism before, or they don't really know what it is, and they're told this is what it is, and they say, yes, I have that, they're typically proud of it because they see it as an advantage. They don't think a lack of empathy and treating others exploitatively is a disadvantage. They see it as adaptive. They see it as being a healthy, for them, and good thing. And they really don't care about other people. So if you're worried, it's really unlikely that you would score highly for NPD, which means you are not a narcissist. The third question I would have for you is this. Do you care when other people suffer? Are you bothered by the suffering of other people? Now, there are 2 ways of caring when other people suffer. One way that you might care is you might be annoyed because you lose services from that person. So if the person becomes depressed or anxious or is in pain, they can't serve you in the way that you like. They can't be a friend to you. They can't offer you sex. They can't offer you the attention, the adulation that you would usually get. The other way, this is for monsters, reptiles, psychopaths, and narcissists. The other way The human way, for warm-blooded mammals, is what upsets you is just the suffering itself. You know that you have suffered and you didn't enjoy it, and you don't want somebody you care about to be suffering. Simple. Do you care when other people suffer? This is compassion. So in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual used by the American Psychiatric Association, when they're looking at the 9 traits of NPD, they'll say a lack of empathy. This is just poor use of language. What they actually mean is compassion. Narcissists, psychopaths, do have empathy. Empathy is only one's ability to create an effective, simulated hallucination of what another person is probably thinking and feeling with a relatively high degree of accuracy. You can never truly know what somebody else is thinking or feeling, but by putting yourself in those shoes, you can imagine, what would I be thinking or feeling if I was in those shoes? Then you have empathy. Well, there's effective empathy, which is more like compassion. It's warm, but you can also have a kind of predatory sort of empathy. A predator has empathy for their prey because they know what a prey will do when trying to escape. So this is a question of warm, effective empathy. I prefer to use the term compassion because it takes away the confusion. If you have compassion for other people's suffering, then you're not a narcissist. Unless what bothers you, and this is not compassion, is it's irritating for you when other people suffer because they're not there to provide you with the adulation and the services that you've gotten used to. The fourth way to know if you are a narcissist, if you have narcissistic personality disorder or not, is to ask yourself whether you have gone out of your way to create a plan that involves other people, to exploit other people to garner adulation, attention, money, or sex from them. This is the interpersonal exploitation part. Now, when we look at the 9 traits of NPD for a clinical diagnosis, they're equally weighted, which to me is insane. These are the purveyors of sanity, the American Psychiatric Association, and they do completely insane things. All of those 9 traits cannot be equally important. I would say a lack of compassion should go very, very high, but also interpersonal exploitiveness should be very, very high. They rate envy as highly as being attached to a delusional fantasy version of yourself. As it happens, if the person didn't have an attachment to a delusional version of themselves, then all of the other traits would be moot for me, because I would say that's not NPD. The core of NPD is a delusional self-image, a fantastical self-image in which I am amazing and I am all powerful and everybody else in the world is below me. I exist inside of a power hierarchy. Everything is a power hierarchy. Everything is a competition. Things that are not competitions, I will turn into competitions to prove I'm better than other people. When you hear me say things like that, can't you hear how much work that is? It's a lot of work. And when you go through these 9 traits, take your time. Because if you care about the subject and you really want to know and it's keeping you awake at night, read through them slowly and be like, what would it look like if I was attached to a fantastical delusional self-image? If anybody ever attacked that self-image that I'm attached to, I would respond with a disproportionate rage. Is that you? And most of you watching be like, no, that ain't me. Then it's very, very, very unlikely that you could effectively be called a narcissist. Very unlikely. It's very unlikely you'd be anywhere on the scale for NPD. Unless you are actively engaging in work. It takes work, it takes effort. Narcissists are frequently exhausted by the work that they do because they never live authentically. They're constantly observing themselves and second guessing how they look through the eyes of others. So they're always working on effect and reaction. They need effect. They need to manifest effect in the world, which is why they say and do crazy things. And they survive, they breathe, they drink, they eat people's emotional reactions to who they are and what they do. This is called narcissistic supply. If you don't survive on narcissistic supply, if your psychological and emotional survival isn't dependent on the adulation of other people, you are not a narcissist. So there's actually quite hard work that goes in to being interpersonally exploitative. Now, you can't tell me, oh, it's vague, it's hard to know whether I am or not. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Are you interpersonally exploitative? Do you think of ways in which to rip other people off and steal their time and steal their attention? Are you pathologically lying to people just to ensure you get the reactions from them that you need? When that adulation and love and admiration goes down, are you panicking? It's called narcissistic depletion. They become depressed, they panic. They do experience emotions that look like normal human emotions, but they're built on a completely different paradigm. So you go, oh, sometimes they're happy. They're not happy. It's narcissistic elation. They've won the game they're trapped inside of that they're forcing everybody else into. It is called narcissistic elation. And yes, they're experiencing probably a dopamine and endorphin rush, but they are not happy. They are not at peace. They are not authentically experiencing anything. They're experiencing the thrill of defeating the enemy. Who's the enemy? Everybody who's not them. Who's the target? Anybody and anything that isn't them. They are the center of the universe. Does this sound like you? No. Then you're not a narcissist. It's the problem that we face is as the term narcissist and these concepts have become better known and better understood, and things that would usually be inside of the psychiatrist's office or the psychotherapist's office or the counselor's office have leaked out into the culture and become popularized. We're having more and more healthy conversations about mental health, and we're having more and more healthy conversations about psychological and emotional abuse. And that's a good thing. The bad side of it is some of these concepts are a little bit harder to understand. This ain't rocket science. This ain't biology or physics. It isn't that hard to understand, but you do need a certain level of language and patience to read the research and to read the definitions. You do need a certain degree of literacy, and it's a couple of clicks up the dial more than the mass of people would want. Do you understand the point I'm making? If something becomes very popular, like the Kardashians or Love Island, that means the thick end of the wedge of the population of humans really like that thing. The thick end of the wedge of the population of humans aren't going to crack open the DSM and read this stuff and be able to take it on board. So there's a gap in people's understanding. And so they end up with like a layman's understanding, a TikTok or an Instagram understanding of narcissist. And that's why it's misused, because people have come to think it means when a guy I'm dating doesn't text me back or a girl I was dating cheated on me. That means it's narcissism. No, there are 9 traits. It's a clinical entity. I don't get to say what it is. You don't get to say what it is. Like it or not, it belongs in the hands of the psychiatrist. I just criticized them 5 minutes ago. I don't worship them as priests or gods, but they get it wrong. But it is theirs. It's a psychiatric term. What do you want me to do? If it was a term from physics, I'd be like, it's the quantum physics guys who own this one, right? They own this, and this is how they define it. So as it goes out into the population, people have gotten confused. And as they've understood more of the subject and we're having more and more open conversations, that's a good thing. But there's more and more confusion, and then there's more and more guilt. So you have people who are the targets of abuse, perhaps lifelong since childhood. They have pronounced fawn responses. They are people pleasers and codependents. They lean heavily towards guilt and shame, and they're very, very likely to wonder if it was them who was the problem all along, especially because the narcissist is going to say that to them, because that is a standard narcissistic tactic. This is all your fault. If they have those traits of codependency since childhood, then they'll be watching a video like this, clicking on it straight away, going, oh, maybe it was me the whole time. It's like, dude, learn. There's some things I've said here. Okay, so it's hardworking, exploitative. The 5th one will be attachment to a delusional sense of self, attachment to delusion. I love this one. And this will kill it for you. I can end it for you here. My proposition is that really what we're talking about here is a kind of psychosis. It's not in the psychosis spectrum of disorders inside of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, but I think it is better understood that way. This is my personal opinion. And I can back it up with the DSM, which I'm about to do, and it will prove to you that you are not a narcissist. So the attachment to delusion, I've said that a number of times now. What am I talking about? The child is in such a painful environment that the choice they have is either escape into a dream world forever, for life, or die here now. That's the choice they face, I claim. This is not mainstream. There are clinicians who agree with me on this one, though. If you're not sure, show it to your psychotherapist. They might be like, yeah, that sounds about right. They're in such a painful environment. They're receiving so many negative messages from the environment, from their parents, sexual, psychological, emotional abuse. Perhaps they're raised by alcoholics or drug addicts or some horror show that poor child is stuck inside of. And one of the options that dawns on the child is I can escape into fantasy. But this is a lifelong deal. If I take the blue pill, it's for life. I'll never come back. And in a certain sense, the part of me that is here now in pain, that I don't want to be in pain, will die. And so they let it die. So they're here. They have fantasy and vulnerability. And they go, okay, I don't want this. This is red pill, is vulnerability. Blue pill, fantasy. If I take this, I'll never experience this again. And I'm stuck in this. And this is a dream. This is the matrix. I'm going to plug in for life. And the child says, I can't do this. It's too hard. Give me this. So they take this blue pill. They wake up in the matrix that now is self-created, self-imputed. I'm God. Whatever happens to me is happening to a God. I may be beaten now, but if I'm beaten, I'm a beaten God. I may be whipped now, but if I'm whipped now, then I'm like Christ. I'm a martyr, or any other prophet from religion or culture you can name. And that's how everything is recast. If I'm winning, of course I'm winning, because I'm a God, because I'm God-like. If I'm losing, it's because the forces of evil have caused me to lose. And now you might think this is too much. Like I've gone from talking psychology and psychiatry to mythology. But remember the godfathers, the grandfathers of psychology and psychiatry, Freud and Jung, they spoke in mythology. Narcissism is from Narcissus. Narcissus is a Greek myth. It was written of by Ovid. Other people wrote about Narcissus and Echo, but Ovid is the one that is the most popular that we know about. So these are mythological in a certain sense. That's how we understand this. So this blue pill is what they're attached to. And this dies. The child's vulnerability dies. So when people come to me and they say, oh, is there hope for people with NPD? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how much of them is left. How much of this is left in? Is there anything of this left in there? I would say if there is anything of this left in there, any vulnerability, yes, there's hope, there's a chance. But full-blown NPD, there's none of this, there's only this. What is this? This, everybody needs a little bit of blue pill to get through daily life. Everybody needs a little bit of ideology. Everybody needs a little bit of fantasy. If you're into your psychoanalytic theory, you know this. Everybody needs fantasy to get through life. Totally normal. When we relate to other people, we relate through fantasy. Fine. So we do this. So here's reality, vulnerability, here's fantasy. And very often our fantasies are narcissistic, because why would you want a fantasy in which you're useless and rubbish? That usually only occurs, this fantasy being damaged, usually only occurs in highly traumatized people. All children go through a phase of latent narcissism. All children go through a phase of narcissism, and then we all carry latent narcissism, a little bit of this throughout our entire lives. This splits, it breaks. The connection with reality breaks when vulnerability is given up. Because if you're not vulnerable, there's no intimacy, and so no reality is getting in anymore, or very little. Reality is only being filtered through this now. And they're attached to this because they've lost this as though their lives depended on it, and it does. So they are now heavily, heavily attached to a delusional fantasy that this is Richard's personal pontification, I suspect they know. So that means all narcissists are fragile narcissists. All narcissists are compensatory narcissists. They know this is a lie. So they're fighting all the time to maintain the charade that they're living, that they know on some level, in and out. Maybe it comes and goes like a dream you wake up out of and you go back into. They come around every once in a while. They're like, oh, I'm living a dream. Oh, I don't like being awake. This doesn't feel good. Let me go back to sleep and enjoy my narcissistic elation. So unless you have had a psychotic break with reality that has led you to forego all of your vulnerability and all of your capacity for intimacy, and to blue pill into a fantasy in which you are amazing and winning at everything throughout the rest of your life, and you are attached to it with a rigidity and an aggressiveness that means if anybody challenges this, you attack them. That's called narcissistic rage. If this is attacked, or reality itself just says, no, you're not amazing, that's considered an attack because of the fragility that's there. That's called a narcissistic injury. The response to this being attacked is narcissistic rage. How dare you suggest I'm not the most amazing, whatever it is that I think I'm amazing at. And I will pursue you and I'll destroy your life. Because you said one thing that was factually accurate, that I'm not as good as that guy over there. And I will work for years to destroy you. So unless you're here, you're not a narcissist. Bringing it back. The chances of somebody sitting through a video like this, figuring out, wringing their hands, going, oh, I wonder if I'm a narcissist, means you're probably not. If you know what the 9 traits of NPD are and consider that you need 5 of them to get a clinical diagnosis, and you're looking at that and you're going, this ain't me. I'm not working hard behind the scenes to exploit people. I'm not a pathological liar. I do experience compassion for people when they suffer. I don't lie to people because when I lie to people, it hurts them. And also I like them. I don't want them to live inside of an illusion. So I don't lie to them because I don't want them to suffer, not because it means I lose some advantage, but because I suffered and I didn't like it. If I'm worried about it, I'm not a narcissist. And if you're not attached to a delusional, grandiose fantasy version of yourself that is rooted in an ongoing psychosis, low-level psychosis. It's not that wild a proposition, by the way, folks, that I'm saying narcissism is a kind of psychosis, because what have we got in the cluster B over there? We've got narcissism, borderline, psychopathy, and histrionic. Well, borderline is the neighbor of narcissism. What's borderline? Borderline is on the borders by definition between neurosis and psychosis. So if I'm a narcissist, I have a neighbor whose name literally means on the borders with psychosis. What is highly comorbid, meaning diagnosed together? Narcissism, borderline personality disorder, and psychopathy and histrionic. So the idea that they're living in a kind of perpetual psychosis is not that wild. It's not that anti-orthodoxy or I'm trying to be some amazing rebel or anything. It is known. It is known that this is the case. If you're watching a video like this, please stay calm, read the literature and just have a word with yourself. Am I being hyper-conscientious? Is this because it's very easy to make me feel guilty? Is this because I've been gaslit by somebody who's been abusive towards me to feel like it's all my fault? Highly likely. If you have been gaslit by somebody into thinking that this is all your fault, that means you've had a narcissistically abusive person in your life. It could be a family member. It could be through work. It could be through a romantic attachment. It could be a friend. Whatever it is, that means that in a certain sense, if you're worried like this and you're waking up at night and you're thinking about it, you are experiencing a kind of narcissistic possession. And it means that that person is now working inside of your head. They've kind of possessed you psychologically. It is very important, whether you're doing a custody battle, whether you're trying to get out of an employment contract, whether you're trying to come out of a difficult relationship, or you've got ongoing issues with a family member, that you reduce the significance of the narcissist by reducing the power of their narcissistic possession of you. If that interests you, I have a new course that's out now called Break Narcissistic Possession, and it's available from this link below. It's not an easy course. Very few of my courses are. Takes a little bit of time to work through, but if you do, you'll reduce the narcissist's significance in your life and you'll reduce the power of their voice that is currently speaking in your head and that is currently influencing your decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your attention. Please hit the like button and subscribe here, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you.